The secret intruder. The night was quiet. Only the sound of wind passing through the small human settlement. Most houses were dark, windows shut, doors locked. But one door was not as secure as the others, and someone was moving slowly in the shadows. She was an alien woman, her body thin and weak, her clothes torn, her eyes tired, her stomach empty. For days she had searched for food, but no one would give her anything. Every time she asked, people laughed or cursed at her. Some even threw stones, calling her a thief, a beggar, a parasite. She was a widow, left alone after the war. Her husband was gone, her people scattered, her life broken. But tonight hunger was stronger than fear. She smelled something. Warm bread, cooked meat, spices. The smell came from a small human house at the edge of the road. Her hands shook as she stepped closer. She knew if she was caught, the human might kill her, but her stomach growled loudly, reminding her she had no choice. She pressed her ear against the wooden door. Inside, she heard nothing but the crackling sound of fire. Perhaps the human was asleep. Perhaps this was her chance. The woman pushed the door very slowly. It creaked, the sound echoing too loud in the silence of night. Her heart jumped. She froze, waiting to see if anyone had heard. But the house remained still. She slipped inside, her bare feet quiet on the floor. The kitchen was small but full of things she had not seen in months. A pot on the fire still warm, bread left on the table. Her eyes widened, her throat dry. She could almost taste the food without touching it. She stepped closer, one hand reaching toward the bread. Her lips parted, ready to take a bite, and then she felt it. Someone was behind her, watching. A heavy silence filled the room. Slowly she turned her head. The human man was standing there. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his face hard but not cruel. In his right hand he held a knife, sharp and ready, his eyes locked on her, filled with suspicion. The woman gasped, fear rushing into her body. Her hands trembled, the bread slipping back onto the table. For a moment, neither spoke. The fire crackled. The night outside seemed to hold its breath. The man's grip on the knife tightened. The woman stepped back, pressing herself against the wall. Her mind screamed to run, but her body was too weak. If he wanted, he could end her right here. No, one would stop him, no one would care. She opened her mouth, words stumbling out. I am sorry, she whispered, her voice shaking. I was only hungry. Please, I did not mean harm. Her alien accent was heavy, her words broken. The man's eyes narrowed, his silence cutting deeper than any shout. She thought of her husband, her lost family. She thought of all the times people spat at her. This was the end, she told herself. Caught like a thief, with nowhere to go. Tears burned in her eyes, not just from fear but from shame. But the man did not move forward, he did not strike, he did not shout. Instead, his eyes studied her face, her hands, her trembling body. He saw the hollow cheeks, the ribs showing. Through her skin he saw not a thief, but someone broken, desperate. Still his knife did not lower. The woman's knees gave way and she fell to the ground. Her hands pressed together, not in anger but in silent begging. Please, she said, her voice no more than a whisper. Her tears dropped onto the floorboards. Her stomach growled again, loud in the quiet kitchen, a sound too human, too real to ignore. The man's jaw tightened, his expression unreadable. The silence stretched longer. The firelight flickered across both their faces. The woman waited for punishment. But instead, the man spoke at last. His voice was calm but heavy with decision. You broke into my house, he said slowly. You knew the risk. The woman lowered her head, unable to answer. Her heart pounded in her chest. Like a drum, she waited for his judgment. Would he throw her outside into the cold? Would he call the others to drag her away? But then, something strange happened. The man stepped closer, not with anger, but with control. He placed the knife down on the table, the sound sharp. The woman flinched, thinking it was a trick. But his hands were empty now. He was no longer a threat, at least not the kind she expected. He stared at her, his eyes softer now, though his voice still firm. You came here for food, didn't you? The woman nodded quickly, afraid to lie, her throat dry, her lips trembling. Yes, food. I was only hungry. The man said nothing more. Instead, he turned his back to her. He reached for the pot, still warm on the fire. The smell of stew filled the room again, stronger now. The woman's breath caught in her chest. Was he going to give it to her? She dared not move, dared not believe. But the moment burned into her memory. For the first time in years, someone looked at her hunger and did not laugh, did not spit. The silence was no longer a threat. It was the beginning of something she did not yet understand. And as the man set a bowl onto the table, the alien woman's heart pounded with confusion and hope, for she realized this night would not end as she had feared. No, it was only just beginning. The human's choice. The wooden bowl sat on the table, steam rising from the stew. The alien woman stared at it, her lips trembling, her hands frozen. She could not believe it. After all the years of hate, after all the hunger, a human was offering her food instead of punishment. But she did not move. Her mind screamed this might be a trick. Perhaps he wanted to watch her beg. Perhaps he wanted to trap her. Her people had been tricked before, given food only to be beaten after. The memory of those cruel laughs burned inside her. So she stayed, still, her eyes wide, her breath shallow. The man noticed her fear. He placed the wooden spoon beside the bowl slowly, then stepped back, his arms crossing. I won't stop you, he said, his voice low. If you want to eat, eat. His words were simple, but heavy with meaning. The woman's heart raced. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had given her a choice. For a long moment she sat on the floor. The fire crackled, the stew bubbled softly. Finally, her hunger was stronger than her doubt. Her body moved before her mind could stop it. She crawled forward, her hands shaking. She reached for the spoon, almost dropping it, then dipped it into the stew. The first taste burned her tongue but filled her chest with warmth. Her eyes widened, tears spilling before she could stop them. She ate quickly, as if the food would vanish at any second. Her throat choked, but she forced each bite down. She had forgotten what warmth felt like inside her stomach. She had forgotten that food could taste like life itself. The man said nothing, only watched. His eyes were sharp but not cruel. Every movement of hers was weighed against his silence. Finally, after half the bowl was gone, she slowed, her hands no longer shaking as much, her body relaxing for the first time in weeks. Then the shame returned. She looked at him, eyes red, her voice low. Why give this to me? The man leaned against the wall, his knife still on the table but untouched. You broke into my house, he said. You could have stolen, you could have attacked. But instead, you only reached for bread. His words cut through her like a blade. She lowered her eyes, ashamed. I have nothing left, she whispered. My husband, gone. My people scattered. No one feeds us, no one cares. The man's jaw tightened. He had heard stories of the alien widows, how the war left them starving, forgotten, unwanted. Most humans in the village called them scavengers. But now, looking at her, he saw something else. Not a parasite, but a survivor. Someone clinging to life with whatever little strength she had. Still, his heart was conflicted. If others found out he was feeding an alien, they would call him a traitor, a fool. Some might even try to drive him out. He thought of the villagers, their harsh words, their fear of outsiders. But then he looked at her again, her hollow cheeks, her trembling hands, her silent tears, and he wondered what being human truly meant. The woman saw the storm in his eyes. She swallowed hard, her voice cracking. If you send me out, I will not last another night. Her words were plain, without drama, just the truth of a soul on the edge. Her eyes met his, full of pain, but also a faint spark of hope. It was not just food she wanted. It was a chance to live. The man exhaled, Slowly, he rubbed his hands over his face. It would be easier to throw her out, safer to shut the door. But easier was not always right. He had seen enough death in his life. Too many nights where he had done nothing while others suffered. Tonight he would not repeat that mistake. He stepped forward. The woman tensed, ready to be dragged outside. But instead, he knelt and lifted the bowl toward her. "Finish it," he said firmly. She blinked, confused. "Eat until you have strength." Again, her chest tightened, tears blurring her vision. She took the bowl, her hands brushing against his. The warmth of human skin shocked her. It was not cold, not cruel. She pulled the bowl close and ate again, slower now. The silence between them was no longer heavy with fear. It was filled with something new, something fragile. When the bowl was empty, she set it down carefully, her eyes lowered, her voice small. "I have no way to repay you," she said. Her words were honest, full of sorrow. But the man shook his head. "You already did," he replied. "You reminded me what it means to choose." She frowned, not understanding. But his eyes softened, and for the first time that night, the knife on the table seemed far away, and the fire's glow felt like the beginning of trust. The woman wrapped her arms around herself, not just from the cold but from the strange warmth growing inside her. She had entered his house as a thief, but she wondered now if she might leave it as something else. And though neither of them said it aloud, they both knew a dangerous path had just begun. A choice had been made, one that would test not just their lives, but the meaning of humanity itself. The first meal. The woman's hands shook as she placed the empty bowl back on the table. Her stomach, once burning with hunger, now felt warm, but her heart still raced, torn between fear and disbelief. A human man had fed her, something she thought would never happen again. For a long moment, she said nothing. The crackling fire was the only sound in the room. The man leaned back in his chair, his sharp eyes watching her closely. He looked less like a guard now, more like a judge waiting for her truth. Finally, her lips parted. I did not think I would eat again," she whispered. Her voice trembled as if the words themselves were fragile. The man's brow furrowed. "How long?" he asked simply. She lowered her gaze, ashamed. 3 days since I last tasted food," she admitted. "And before that, only scraps." The man clenched his fists. He had seen beggars before, but never had he seen such raw emptiness in someone's eyes. It was not laziness, not weakness. It was pure survival. He wondered how many more like her were hiding in the shadows of the world. Too many, he realized. And yet here she was, in his house, alive only because she had dared to risk her life for a meal. The woman's eyes glistened with tears she tried to hold back. She wanted to thank him again, but the words felt too small. Her husband used to tell her that words meant nothing compared to actions, and this man's actions spoke louder than anything she had ever known. But still, she feared it would not last. She feared he would regret helping her, that at any moment he would change his mind. The thought made her chest heavy. So she asked, her voice breaking, "Will you send me away now?" The man did not answer immediately. He looked at the empty bowl, the spoon still resting inside. Then he looked at her, frail but no longer collapsing. Her shoulders tense, her body ready to flee if he gave the word. But instead of anger, he only sighed. "You needed food," he said at last. "And I had food." He shrugged, as if it was the simplest thing in the world. But for her, it was the most impossible miracle. Her lips parted in disbelief. To him, it was nothing. To her, it was everything. She shook her head, tears sliding down her cheeks. "Your people, they do not think like this," she whispered. "They would rather see us starve than share a crumb." The man's jaw tightened. "They are afraid," he replied, "and fear makes people cruel." His voice was heavy, carrying memories of his own. He did not tell her, but he too had seen cruelty in the war. He had lost friends, seen neighbors betray each other. He knew what fear could turn people into. The woman hugged herself, her thin frame trembling. My husband. He believed the same, she said softly. He died believing someone would show kindness, but no one did. Her voice cracked. He was wrong, wasn't he? The man stared at her for a long time. Then he leaned forward, his eyes burning with something fierce. Maybe he was just waiting for the right human, he said. The woman gasped quietly. Her heart skipped at the weight of his words. Could he mean himself, or was he just trying to comfort her? Silence stretched between them. But this silence was different. It was not filled with suspicion. It was heavy with something unspoken, something fragile. The woman lowered her head. Her tears fell onto her hands, and she whispered, barely loud enough to hear, "Thank you." The man stood then, moving to the hearth. He poured more stew into the pot and stirred it, his voice calm but firm. "You will eat again tomorrow." The woman's head shot, up eyes wide. Tomorrow. Did that mean she could stay? Her lips trembled, hope and fear fighting inside her. But she dared not ask. Instead, she only nodded, clutching the memory of his words, as if holding on to them could keep her alive. The man walked past her toward the door. He paused, his hand resting on the frame. "Do not leave tonight," he said without turning back. "The streets are not safe. If the villagers see you, they will not be as forgiving." His words were blunt, but hidden inside was a strange kind of protection. The woman swallowed hard. She had expected him to throw her out into the dark. Instead, he was offering her shelter. Her body ached with exhaustion, her eyes heavy from sleepless nights. She wanted to lie down, to close her eyes just once without fear. But she hesitated. "This is your home," she whispered. "I should not rest," he cut her off. His voice was stern but not unkind. "Tomorrow we will see what comes." Then he stepped outside for a moment. Leaving her in the warmth of the fire, the alien woman sat there, her heart pounding. She had stolen her way into this kitchen, expecting punishment, expecting death, but instead, she had eaten her first real meal in months. And now, for the first time since her husband's death, she dared to hope that maybe she was not completely alone. As she curled near the fire, her last thought before sleep was simple, not of fear, not of sorrow, but of the strange human who had made a choice that would change both their lives forever. Shadows of the past. The alien woman woke with a start. For a moment she thought she was still lying in the dirt outside the ruined camps. But no, the fire was still glowing faintly in the human's home. She touched her lips, tasting the memory of food. Her chest tightened. Had it been a dream? Then she noticed the empty bowl beside her. The truth hit her. She had eaten. A human had fed her. The thought was almost too much to believe. She sat up, her thin fingers tracing the wooden floor. It had been so long since she had felt safe, enough to sleep without fear. Yet her safety felt fragile. Like a small candle that could be blown out any second, her eyes wandered to the window. The village outside was quiet, but she knew what waited there. Cruel stares, mocking laughter, stones thrown by children copying their parents. Humans in groups were dangerous, but this one human, he was different. Why? The question dug into her chest like a thorn. Why would he help her when the rest would spit on her name? The door creaked and she flinched. The man entered, carrying a small sack of firewood. He placed it down without a word, then glanced at her. "You're awake," he said simply. She nodded, pulling her ragged cloak tighter around her. He moved to the table, setting a loaf of bread down. Her eyes followed it, hunger rising again, though she was ashamed. "You can have some," he said, noticing her gaze. She shook her head quickly. "I should not take more." Her voice cracked. "You already gave me too much." The man's expression darkened. "Too much?" he repeated. "You think a bowl of stew is too much for a starving widow?" His words struck her harder than she expected. Her eyes lowered. "I am not worth the trouble," she whispered. Her voice was so small it was almost lost in the crackle of the fire. The man leaned forward, his eyes sharp. "Who told you that?" She froze, her lips trembling. Memories rose like ghosts in her mind. She saw her people lined up after the war, humans and aliens shouting at them, calling them filthy, weak, unwanted. She saw her husband defending her, standing tall even as stones and fists struck him, and she saw him fall, blood staining the ground, the last words he spoke echoing in her ears. Keep living. Don't let them break you. Tears spilled down her cheeks, her voice broke as she answered. Everyone told me that. The soldiers, the villagers, even my own kind. They called me a curse because I survived when others did not. And when my husband was killed, I became nothing. The man's jaw tightened. His chest rose and fell with anger, not at her, but at the cruelty she described. He had heard stories of war's aftermath, but to see it carved into her skin, her voice, her trembling hands, it was a wound deeper than he could imagine. The woman covered her face, her shoulders shaking. I begged for food. I begged just for bread. They spat at me, laughed at me. Some said I should lie down in the dirt and die, and I almost did. Her voice cracked, but hunger kept me alive even when hope was gone. Silence filled the room again, but this silence was heavy with sorrow, not fear. The man sat down across from her, his eyes steady. You lived, he said firmly, and that means something. She looked up at him, her cheeks wet. Does it? She asked. To most, I am already dead. The man leaned closer. His voice was low, but sharp like steel. Then they are fools, because I see someone who is still fighting. Her chest tightened. The words pierced through the darkness inside her. For years she had only heard insults, curses, orders to disappear, but now someone was telling her she mattered. It was almost too much to carry. She shook her head, unable to stop crying. You don't know me, she whispered. You don't know the things I've done to survive. His eyes didn't waver. Maybe I don't, he admitted, but I know what I see in front of me, and I know what hunger does. It doesn't make you evil, it makes you desperate. Anyone who says otherwise has never been truly hungry. The woman's breath caught in her throat. No one had ever spoken like this to her before. For the first time in years, she felt like she was not dirt, not garbage to be thrown away, but a living soul still worth something. Before she could answer, a sharp sound echoed outside, the crunch of footsteps, voices whispering. The woman's body stiffened, her heart pounded. Villagers. They must have seen her shadow in the window, or maybe they had followed her scent. Of fear, she looked at the man in panic. They cannot find me here, she whispered. They will kill me if they do. The man stood slowly, his hand resting near the knife on the table, his jaw set like stone. Then they won't find you, he said, his voice calm. But beneath it was fire. The fire of a man who had already made a choice. The woman's chest heaved. She realized then that the shadows of her past were not only inside her, they were outside too, waiting to drag her back into the dirt. But for the first time, she was not facing them alone. The village's anger. The voices outside grew louder. The alien woman's breath quickened, her eyes wide with fear. She pressed herself against the wall as if she could melt into the shadows. But footsteps crunched closer on the gravel road. Torches flickered through the cracks in the wooden door. The man stood tall, his face tight with anger. They've come, he muttered, his voice low. The woman's heart pounded. What will they do if they find me? She whispered. Her trembling hands gripped the edge of her cloak. They will drag me through the streets. They will not let me live. The man's jaw clenched. Stay behind me, he said firmly. Before she could argue, a heavy knock shook the door. Open up, a harsh voice called. We know what you're hiding. The woman's body froze. Tears threatened to spill as her worst fear came alive. How had they discovered her? Had someone seen her sneak into the house last night? Or had they simply guessed? Because hunger always betrayed the desperate. The man grabbed his knife and opened the door slowly. The villagers stood outside, a group of 10, faces hard, mouths twisted with anger. Some carried sticks, others clenched their fists. At the front was a tall man with sharp eyes. The butcher, one, Of the loudest voices in the village, he pointed an accusing finger. "We saw her shadow in your window," he spat. "Don't lie. You're hiding a filthy alien in there." The man's grip tightened on his knife. His voice stayed calm but firm. "You're mistaken," he said. "There's nothing here for you." But the butcher sneered. "You think we are blind? You let her in, didn't you? You feed her with your food while our children go hungry." The crowd growled in agreement. Mothers pulled their shawls tighter. Men muttered curses. Fear twisted into anger, and anger into hate. The alien woman heard every word through the crack of the door. Each word stabbed her like a blade. Her body trembled, her breath shallow. They hated her without even seeing her face, hated her for simply surviving. One villager shouted, "She'll bring more of her kind." First one, then a dozen, then 100. Another added, "Send her out. We will deal with her the way we should have from the start." The woman covered her mouth with her hands. Her tears spilled freely now. She wished she could disappear, vanish into dust. She did not want to bring danger to the man who had shown her kindness. Her heart screamed at her to run, but her legs would not move. The man stepped forward, blocking the doorway, his shoulders broad, his knife glinting in the firelight. "You will not touch her," he said, his voice steady. The crowd erupted in shouts. "Traitor! Fool! You'll regret this." The butcher's face twisted with rage. "Why defend her?" He barked. "She is nothing, less than an animal. Let her starve, let her die. Why should you care?" The man's eyes burned. "Because she is alive," he snapped. "Because she is not nothing." The words cut through the shouting. For a moment silence fell. The villagers blinked. Taken aback by his defiance, the alien woman's heart pounded harder. She pressed her hand to her chest. The man had said it aloud. She was not nothing. Her husband's voice echoed in her memory. "Don't let them break you." And now? Someone else was saying the same. The butcher snarled, recovering from his shock. "You think your words mean anything? This is bigger than you. If you stand with her, you stand against us all." The crowd roared again. Some spit on the ground, others raised their sticks. The firelight flickered across angry faces. The woman sobbed quietly. This was her fault. Her curse had followed her even here. The human man was risking his life because of her. The man took a deep breath. He lowered the knife slightly but did not move aside. His voice was calm, but rang with strength. If being human means turning away from someone starving, if it means leaving a widow to die in the dirt, then maybe you've forgotten what it means to be human at all. The words struck like a hammer. The villagers shifted uneasily. Some looked down at the ground, shame flickering in their eyes, but others only grew angrier. Hatred is not so easily broken. The butcher stepped forward, his face red with fury. "You speak like a fool," he growled. "She will ruin you. She will ruin all of us, and when that happens, don't expect us to save you." The man's grip tightened on his knife again. "Then so be it," he said, his voice was steel. "She stays." The villagers shouted again, but their courage wavered. They knew the man's strength, his will. No one wanted to be the first. To test his blade one by one, they began to step back, muttering curses, spitting at the ground, but not daring to push further. The butcher glared at him, his eyes full of venom. "This isn't over," he hissed. Then he turned, leading the others back into the night. The sound of their footsteps faded slowly, but their hatred lingered in the air like smoke. The man shut the door, bolting it tight. He turned and found the woman still pressed against the wall, her face streaked with tears, her body trembling. Her lips moved, but no words came out. Finally, she whispered, You stood for me." The man placed the knife back on the table, his shoulders heavy with exhaustion. "Yes," he said simply, "because someone had to." The woman broke into sobs, but for the first time, they were not only of fear, they were of relief. For the first time in years, someone had chosen her side, the stand of humanity. The house was quiet after the villagers left, but the silence was heavy, like a storm waiting to break. The alien woman sat on the floor, her cloak wrapped around her trembling body, Her eyes were still red from crying. Her lips kept forming the same question over and over. Why? Why did you defend me? The man paced near the fire, his jaw tight, his hands restless. Finally, he turned to her. Because it was the right thing to do, he said. His voice was simple, but the weight in it was strong. You came here hungry, not to harm me. If I turned you away, what would I be? Less than human. Her chest ached at his words. She shook her head slowly. Your people will not forgive you, she whispered. They will come again, stronger. And this time, they may not leave without blood. The man stared into the fire. He knew she was right. The villagers had not backed down. They had only delayed their anger, but his face hardened. Then let them come, he muttered. I will not betray you. The woman gasped softly. Her throat tightened. Never had she heard anyone say those words to her. Her husband had once promised the same. But he was gone. And now this human, a stranger, was carrying the weight of that vow. Her voice cracked as she spoke. You will lose everything for me. Why throw your life into the fire? The man stepped closer, his shadow falling over her. I fought in the war, he said. I saw men kill out of fear. I saw women starve because no one dared to share. And every time I did nothing, I told myself it wasn't my fight. But it always was. His eyes burned as he looked down at her. I will not be that coward again. Not when you sit in front of me, still alive, still fighting. If the village hates me for it, then so be it. The alien woman's hands covered her mouth. Her tears spilled again, but they were different now. Not only fear, but something warmer, something she thought she would never feel again, the weight of being worth someone's choice. The man turned away, but his words lingered in the room like a shield around her. He opened the door and stepped outside. The night air was cold, the village silent, but he knew eyes were watching. He could almost feel the hate pressing from the shadows, so he raised his voice, loud enough for the night to carry. If any of you think I've forgotten what it means to be human, come to me now. The alien woman gasped from inside the house. Her heart pounded. He was calling them out, challenging the whole village. Windows cracked open. Faces peeked through the dark. One by one, the villagers stepped from their homes. Torches lit again. Whispers spread like fire. The butcher was among them, his eyes sharp and hungry. You've lost your mind, the butcher growled. You risk everything for her, the man's voice thundered. I risk nothing. It is you who risk your souls by letting cruelty rule you. The crowd murmured, shifting uneasily. Some nodded in shame, but many growled louder. The butcher shouted back, She is not one of us. Why should she deserve food, safety, life? The man lifted his hand, pointing at them. Because if we deny her those things, we deny our own humanity. What are we, if we cannot feed the hungry? What are we, if we let widows die in the dirt? The villagers flinched at his words. Mothers clutched their children tighter. Old men looked down at their feet, but hate still burned in others' eyes. The butcher snarled, You speak fine words, but words won't fill bellies. We barely have enough for ourselves. The man stepped closer, his voice cut like steel. Then let me share mine. Let me carry the burden if you are too weak. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some looked at him with awe, others with scorn. But no one could deny his courage. He stood alone. Yet his strength made him taller than them all. Inside the house, the alien woman's hands shook. She pressed her forehead to the wooden wall. Tears ran down her face. Every word he spoke was a blade turned against the hatred of the world. And every blade somehow was cutting her chains loose. The butcher's face twisted with rage. You shame us all, he spat. No, you shame yourselves, the man replied. Your fear has blinded you, but fear is not who we are. Compassion is the silence that followed was heavy. The torches flickered, the crowd stirred. No one stepped forward, not even the butcher dared, because the fire in the man's eyes was stronger than theirs. At last, the villagers began to scatter, some muttering, some ashamed. The butcher glared, but even he turned away. The man stood, there until the last torchlight faded. Then he closed the door, bolted it tight. The alien woman rose to her feet, her knees weak. She stared at him, her lips trembling. You spoke for me, not just to me, but to them all. The man set the knife down, his chest heavy but steady. I didn't speak for you, he said softly. I spoke for us, for what it means to be human. The woman's tears fell silently. She stepped closer, her voice breaking. Then, tonight you saved more than my life. You saved my hope. A home found. The door closed with a heavy thud. The lock slid into place, sealing the house against the night. The man leaned against the wall, his shoulders heavy but steady. Outside, the village had grown silent again, but the echo of angry voices still lingered in the air. The alien woman stood frozen, her hands pressed against her chest. Her eyes followed him as if she were afraid he might vanish. She had seen men walk away. Before she had seen promises broken, but this one had stood against his own people. For her, tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them. Her voice trembled when she spoke. You risked everything tonight. Your home, your name, your life. The man's eyes lifted to hers, and for the first time, he allowed a small, tired smile. I risked nothing I wasn't willing to lose, he said. His words were calm, but they carried the weight of choice, a choice that had changed them both. The woman sank to her knees, her body trembling with exhaustion. But her heart trembled more with something she had long forgotten. The feeling of safety, the warmth of belonging. Her lips shook as she whispered, No one has ever chosen me before. The man knelt beside her. His large hand rested gently on her shoulder. You were never nothing, he said firmly. Don't ever let them tell you otherwise. You're alive, and that is enough. Her breath caught in her throat. She pressed her hands to her mouth to stifle her sobs. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe she was more than the dirt the villagers had called her, and for the first time she did. The fire crackled softly. The man stood and poured water into a wooden cup. He handed it to her. Drink. You'll need your strength. She took it with trembling hands. Her reflection rippled in the water. For years she had seen only shame in her reflection. But now, under his roof, she saw something new. A woman who had survived. When she finished, she placed the cup down carefully. Her voice was quiet, but filled with fear and hope. What will happen tomorrow, when the village comes again, when they bring more anger? The man's jaw tightened. They may come, they may shout, but I will stand. And if they cast me out, then I will go, but I will not cast you out. Her chest squeezed at his words. She whispered, Why keep me? I am a widow, broken, unwanted. I bring nothing but trouble. The man shook his head. You bring truth, he said softly. You remind me that kindness still matters, that humanity is more than fear and greed. If I let you go, I lose myself. The woman's tears fell freely now. She covered her face, but her shoulders shook. It was too much, too heavy, and yet so light at the same time, the weight of sorrow lifting, the warmth of hope filling its place. Slowly she lowered her hands. Her eyes met his, glistening with tears, and she whispered words she thought she would never speak again. Then, May I stay? The man did not hesitate. Yes, he said firmly. As long as you need. This is your home now, too. Her lips trembled. Her heart raced. The word home had been gone from her life for so long. She thought she would never hear it again, and yet here it was, offered freely, a gift greater than food, greater than safety. It was belonging. She bowed her head, her tears falling onto the wooden floor. Thank you, she whispered again and again, her voice breaking with each word, until her tears turned into quiet sobs of relief. The man placed a blanket over her shoulders. It was old, patched, but warm. She pulled it tight, her body sinking into the comfort she had long been denied. Her eyes closed, and for the first time since her husband's death, she slept without fear. The man sat by the fire, watching the flames dance. His knife lay on the table, unused. Tonight he had fought a battle without blades, a battle of choice, and he had won. When dawn came, the village was still. The sun rose over the quiet houses. Some eyes glared from windows, some turned away in shame, but no one knocked on his door. The night's fire had shaken them. The man had stood alone, and somehow it was enough. The alien woman woke. Her eyes opened to the warm light of morning. For a heartbeat, she forgot where she was. Then she saw the fire, the blanket, the man, and she remembered. She was not in the dirt, not starving, not hated. She was here, alive. She looked at him, her voice still soft. Yesterday I was nothing. Today, you gave me a place. How can I ever repay you? The man shook his head. You already have, he said gently. You gave me a reason to be human again. Her eyes filled with tears once more, but this time, they were not tears of pain. They were tears of healing, of something fragile but real, the beginning of a new life. And as the firelight warmed them both, the alien widow whispered words that sealed her heart to him forever. I thought I had no one left, but now I have you.